Great, great. By the way, I saw your video yesterday about AI agents, and it was so cool. I think you were editing interviews from the AI summit, and it was really nice. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because this is like the first time so many experts were talking about agents. Like before,
Yeah.
you know, it's usually like only one person, but now it was literally the entire AI summit was about agents. I feel like so.
Yeah.
Okay, should we get started?
Sounds good.
Okay, so first question: how did you get into building agents?
I guess it was like hype around the time when AutoGPT was published. I think that everyone on Twitter was talking about how they just built a website or I don't know, now they don't need to employ anyone anymore. They can do it all with AutoGPT. And of course, I also wanted to automate some of the stuff. Who wouldn't? And I tried and I failed. And I think that that's the first video. Like all of my videos before AutoGPT video were getting like 100 views, and those were mostly my family members that I forced to watch. But this video was like the first video that people like really wanted to watch, and I was shocked. I remember at the time I had like 10,000 views, and I was like, oh my god! Like it was a video about how I tried to build a website with AutoGPT, and it was looping a lot. So I guess all the other videos were showing the highlights of agents, and that video was like more like it's not that functional,
Yeah.
I guess. So that's how I got into AI agents, and for a really long time I had like a negative opinion about them because of AutoGPT.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I like, one important detail is that the first agent team you've built, like, actually failed, and so many people have this experience, and but the
Yeah.
next step is that they give up and they don't like build anything else. But you didn't do that. You actually kept building agents. So what was the like first team that actually clicked for you?
That's a good question. Well, to be honest, my first question was like, what can I use this for? Like, what exactly can I automate? Because a lot of the examples on Twitter were somehow useless for me. Like, people would do things that maybe like usually are snake games, right? Look, I made
Yeah.
this game or something like that. Like, it's great, but what am I going to do with this, right? So I guess I realized very quickly that I can process like a lot of information with agents, because I guess that's what LLMs are for. They're really good at the scale. And I think that the first team of agents that I built that was successful was Crew AI, and I made a video about it. And I managed to like kind of extract some information about AI trends and what people are talking about thanks to Crew AI. Yeah.
So if someone wants to get into agents, would you recommend them Crew AI or a different framework?
Ooh, it's a good one. I think it depends if you are a total beginner and you don't have really any programming experience, right? I know that Crew AI currently doesn't have like any interface, so if you just know how to do things around terminal, I guess maybe AutoGen Studio would be better. And yesterday I was actually testing Devika, and that's what I think that's how it's pronounced,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to like it's supposed to be a copy of Devon, and it has like a graphic interface. So if you're a non-programmer, then I would recommend AutoGen Studio and Devika. And if you are a programmer, then yeah, I would recommend Crew AI probably.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not afraid of, writing some code, but I know that for people like, even the basic programming can be intimidating. But what I found is that actually the AutoGen Studio setup is almost more difficult than, Crew AI code. So,
It's true.
yeah,
I agree. Yeah, that's another problem. A lot of these like uh, AI agents ideas, whatever, are people are building stuff and they say that they are for non-programmers, and then I make a video about it and I'm like no code agent framework, and then people in the comments comment after me, they're like, well, but you still need to do programming. And I'm like, no, it's the terminal, it's not programming. But I understand why they might think so. So
yeah.
you
Anytime
know
I
it.
also mention like even known programmers can do this, I get so many comments. And like what I
Yeah.
try to do is I tried like telling people like, if you get stuck, just please use ChatGPT, you will get unstuck. But so many people still underestimate the power of the current LLMs, and like I get so many comments that are literally just, if I just copy paste them into ChatGPT, I get the answer. But it's, I don't know, it feels like it's not natural for people to ask LLMs for the answer.
Yeah, because I think that we still didn't develop this habit.
Yeah.
I myself, for example, don't use Google anymore ever. I don't know about you, but like I feel so inefficient when I try to find answers on Google. So usually when I have some technical problem, I used to try ChatGPT, but now I prefer Claude. I actually have like a subscription, and I just prefer the way that the chatbot sounds. And if I have like some research to do, then I do Perplexity, because it has a really nice internet browsing feature. So
Yeah. I mean, I use Google for images because I think that's still
yeah.
like the best way. But yeah, for like if I need to do research, then I do usually a combination of Perplexity, where I have the LLM set up to Claude 3, and then
Yeah.
Gemini from Google is also pretty good. And I mean, I'm in Europe, so Claude.ai is not available. So what I have to do is I
Oh.
have to go to the Anthropic console for developers and use it there. I mean, it's fine, but you know, it's still a bit more friction. But at least I don't pay subscription. I pay for the API usage I, consume, for the tokens I use. So that's good.
Oh, that's good. You can also, I'm pretty sure, because Mistral is a French company.
Hmm.
I think that they have Le Chat.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but like I think that is also a good chatbot. So you can use that in Europe, I'm pretty sure.
Do you think like Mistral Large should be considered state of the art? Like, do you think it's up there with GPT-4 Turbo and Claude 3 Opus?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. One thing I have to say is that so far, Mistral has like the best open source 7 billion parameter model. And there's this giant hype around model blending. And people seem to kind of improve Mistral by blending it with other models. And I think that that company is, we're gonna see great things from them. I really love everything that they're doing. So I just, yeah, I'm a huge fan. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Like they're like what, 9 months old or something like that. It's
Yeah.
such a new company, and they've already released models that are, coming for OpenAI and Google. So like, just if you compare the amount of resources they have compared to these tech giants, it's
Yeah.
crazy, right?
Exactly. Like it's get like Mistral 7 billion parameter. Like that model, like it's just so much better than any other model that we have that's open source. Even like bigger models like Llama with 70 billion parameters. I when I use a Mistral 7 billion, like I see that it's a better model somehow. I enjoy it more.
Yeah. Although like Llama 3 is in development, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe Zach can cook something up, and I mean if Llama 3 is better than GPT-4, that'll be insane.
Yeah, but you see, Google has like unlimited resources, and
Hmm.
they still really struggle. So it's not a guarantee, but we'll see. I guess you're right. I'm also excited about Llama 3.
All right. Do you want to go into the presentation?
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I guess I just made this tiny presentation just in order to like cover some of the basics, because I feel like a lot of people don't really understand on a deeper level what an agent is. And
Yeah.
I think that I also didn't understand, which I think made me quite confused, and it made me either overestimate or underestimate agents. So in like a broader sense, an agent is like an entity with capacity to act. It's as simple as that. And pretty much like a human, we can say, is an agent that's like a single program agent, or an animal that acts like autonomously, like a cat asking for a treat, or as we can see, a machine, right? With these AI agents. And now, what does it mean to act? Because I think that a lot of people kind of just, because we do it every day, we don't really think consciously about it, and we don't really care about what it really implies. Um, and kind of like this question of what it means to act was something that was, I guess, obsessing people for thousands of years, because Aristotle actually in like 350 before Christ, year before Christ, was like, we deliberate not about ends but about means, and we can say that for a doctor does not deliberate about whether he shall heal, nor narrator whether he shall persuade. So what Aristotle is kind of trying to say is that you don't really like a goal on its own as like a fixed thing. You are here and you want to become a Hollywood star. You have this goal, and you don't really necessarily have a lot of say in it. You the heart wants what it wants, right? So like this road between like where you are and where you want to become, where you want to be, is a road of actions, right? It consists of some tinier tasks, some tinier goals that you have for yourself. And yeah, and this is pretty much what Aristotle was like obsessed with. He also had some weird beliefs, like he believed that men have more teeth, and whoever has more teeth is going to live longer. But at least when it comes to this, he was like a pioneer. He was the first person that we know that thought about what it means to act. Then you have Ramon Lull in the 13th century, and these wheels are something that you can see even on YouTube. I was kind of super surprised. A lot of people think that Ramon was like a father of computer science and theory, because these wheels on the right, they're like a first time that humanity had some sort of like a logical operations. He was trying to find the truth about life, that's like absolute truth, and he was kind of like making these tiny algorithms that could bring him to truth. Then you have Blaise Pascal, who made the mechanical calculator that a lot of people claim is the first computer, and it could only do like additions and subtractions. And I think that Pascal's father used it for taxes, and that was pretty much it. And it was forgotten afterwards. I think that they struggled to produce it in larger quantities. And then a jump to 19th century and Ada Lovelace, who made this note G, which many kind of consider to be a first algorithm ever. And she even said that it's like a thinking or a reasoning machine. So as you can see, it's like 2,000 years of like this idea slowly building. And then you get to the 1950s and Alan Turing, who, people consider to be a father of computer science. He had this research paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence. And one of the first things that this research paper says is, can machines think? And Alan Turing had a lot of people that were skeptical. They believed that it's impossible at the time, and that's why he devised this imitation game that's supposed to sort of like convince people that machines can indeed sound like they're thinking or they can think, and it became a Turing test eventually. Then 6 years later, you have Dartmouth Conference, where the term AI gets mentioned for the first time, and these are the founding fathers of AI. And I kind of thought that this is really funny. They wrote like a tiny manifest, and they said that we propose a 2-month, 10-month study of artificial intelligence in order to try to make machines use language, form abstractions, and solve problems that only humans can. So they believe that in 2 months they can achieve what essentially AI is still trying to do, which I think is kind of like hilariously giant amount of optimism. And John McCarthy was one of the founding fathers, and he had like, thanks to him, we have not just thanks to him, there were other people, but he kind of like pioneered this program called MYCIN, and it was a type of a knowledge-based system or a symbolic AI that had its like moment in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and it was kind of like the culmination of everything that I talked about before, from Aristotle till onwards. Because at the time, people believed that AI has to arise from this rational thinking. For example, if you want to get to the airport again, with these symbolic AI, you would have a bunch of rules. Like you have to get into the elevator, then you have to call an Uber, then you have to drive for 15 minutes, and then that means that you got to the airport, right? So it's some sort of like if statements, like if this is true, then this, and then if that's true, then that, and that's pretty much what the first AI was about, the symbolic AI, and people discovered that it's a kind of a problematic approach because it worked fine for that program that I mentioned, MYCIN. That was people at the time used it. Doctors used it to diagnose patients, and it had around 600 rules. And it indeed could like diagnose, interpret some sort of like lab results and stuff. But the problem is that if you ask that symbolic AI, like a chatbot that's built on top of symbolic AI, how long will it take you to get to Xeratin? And Xeratin is a galaxy that I invented. It doesn't exist. Well, it's going to start from the beginning. It's going to be like, first statement, are you in the car, or whatever it is that you however you built it. And the problem with a symbolic AI is that well, first of all, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world. If you try to build an AI system to help you get to the airport, and it has some sort of fixed rules like symbolic AI, like how is it going to take into consideration that it might be like there might be like a traffic jam somewhere, right? Or a strike or things like that. Then there's ignorance. For example, the galaxy that I just invented, it doesn't exist. But symbolic AI wouldn't have a single clue that it doesn't exist. It would just go on about, it would start all over again. Then complexity. World is incredibly messy and complicated, and it just doesn't work well for these rational symbolic AI systems. So what is the solution? Well, at the time when people were building these symbolic AI systems, that's when the first AI winter started because these systems were really limited. And it lasted for a few decades. But while the funding kind of like stopped and the research seemed to die, in the background, the field of AI went to in a totally unexpected direction. It went into probabilistics and statistics. And this is where we are right now. We have these networks. We have next token predictions. Without going into details, we can say that right now this is pretty much the main approach in AI. They're like kind of like what is it called? Probabilistic distribution, and the token that you get, like what seems to be like a thinking machine, a thinking ChatGPT, is just basically constantly predicting the next token that makes the most sense. Yeah, so that was the change of paradigm in the 70s. It's the rise of deep learning with a bunch of layers, and the rise of reinforcement learning, where we kind of see for the first time, this idea that there's an agent and there's an environment in which the agent exists, and then based on what it does, it gets rewarded or it gets punished for what it does. It's quite a shift from those first sort of like, let's call them AI agents that were just following a bunch of rules. And the OpenAI had they pioneered these Jim Atari environments in 2016, I believe, where AI agents could like learn from these cute little environments. I don't think it's available anymore. You cannot really use it. So here's what I noticed. Before the 80s, you could say that the idea was that agent is an entity with the capacity to act, and it's intelligent to the extent that its action can be expected to achieve its goals. And here I added in brackets our goals, because ideally we would put goals into machines and not the other way around.
Yep.
But after the 80s, with this paradigm shift, it became like agents became more complicated, and you could say that they're intelligent to the extent that their actions can be expected to achieve goals given what they have perceived in the environment. And this is kind of where we are right now. If you think about an AI agent, it should be able to act autonomously, ideally with a human in the loop as a way to control and kind of guide an agent. Ideally, it should have memory, because memory allows agents to have to display some sort of like personalized behavior. So you can have your own personal agent that's like custom made for you. It should be reactive. It should perceive things in its environment, whether it's like text or audio or visual input. And it should be able to be proactive. And we see this very often. Agents have tools now. They can make API calls, they can do function calling, which makes them smarter. And they should also have social ability, which is the ability to kind of like keep the flow, to delegate, and so on. And now this is the part that this is how I started the presentation. And this is the question that I had in my mind as I was thinking about agents. Like, what is it that an agent can do that a human cannot do? And I think that Stuart Russell, who's a computer scientist, kind of answered this question perfectly in his book, A Human Compatible. He said that speech and text understanding also enable machines to do things that no other human can do, not because of the depth of understanding, but because of its scale. And I believe that this is the core. This is what agents can do that humans cannot do, the scale. For example, you can have an agent scrape a bunch of information from Reddit, from YouTube, from your Gmail, whatever you want, and then you can ask it to summarize it and to give you an output that's like newsletter or summarize and write an email and so on. These things would take you forever. For example, if you take that an average speed of reading is 200 to 300 words per minute, you would need if and an average YouTube video lasts for like 20 minutes, you could have an agent analyze 10 YouTube videos and write it like a summary in a minute, whereas it would take you hours. Or another great use case is imagine your life in the next 5 years, right? If you ask yourself this, you're probably gonna imagine few possible scenarios with a tiny bit of details, like, well, I guess I want to graduate, guess I want to move to a country, or maybe I won't go to university, maybe I'll get married, or whatever, right? It's like few details and few possible paths, whereas an agent could brainstorm something like this for you without a problem, and it could give you a lot of details and a lot of interesting ideas.
So this is like chess, basically, where like a human grandmaster can only think like 20 moves ahead, and you have a stockfish that can brainstorm like thousands of different moves.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And this is what agents can do that because an agent is built on top of LLM, right? That humans just cannot do. We cannot compete with them, but they can. When this is now the next question. Like, what is it that an agent can do that a single large language model cannot do, right? And I believe that one of the main thing is that its accuracy is improved because it goes through a couple of iterations. It can fact check, and it can that can bring less hallucinations and lead to improved accuracy. And actually, that video that you published about AI agents, Andrew, I believe, talks about this. He did a research in which he kind of like proved that GPT 3.5 is way more accurate. It's like 96% more of the time accurate compared to like zero shot GPT-4.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like people don't realize what that means. It's like you can take a worse LLM, and with the power of agents, you can make it better than a much more advanced LLM.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. Right. Like a zero shot prompting is what we all do. Like I do it all the time. I know that I ideally should use like a crew of agents, but it's still easier for me to like type something in a chatbot. But if
Of
you think
course.
about it, like you can have like a GPT 3.5 is not impressive anymore, and it can be, look how accurate it can be. Just, this is the quote that I got from that video that you shared. And another thing that I think that agents do that a single LLM cannot do is offload decision making and prioritization. So if you have some sort of a request like create AI trends overview, right? You don't have to think about how you're gonna accomplish this goal. Agent is going to write some smaller tasks like I need to take these steps, and we even see it as we like play with AI agents. We see whether it's in the terminal or whatever, that they kind of like brainstorm about your request, and they think about what needs to be done, and then they're gonna like see which task has the highest priority. And this is a very important step. I personally hate, you know, making this list of what needs to be done. Um, and I have this decision fatigue, and the fact that I have these agents that can kind of like collaborate together and do this for me is a huge help for me. So I kind of like, this is the end of my presentation, and I shared my own personal experiences, what I find to be the most useful about AI agents. And I understand that this can be different for others, and that's fine. Actually, I would love to see what other use cases other people have. But at at the deepest level, this is what I think is kind of like what AI agents are about. And of course, AI agents are not AGI. Like people shouldn't expect that of them. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation.
I have to say, I did not expect it to start with Aristotle, but I love it.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I might have gotten carried away because I wanted to build this like kind of like rationality and how it led to, everything else. So
But it's fascinating, like you see, like people thought that AGI is just, few months away, even 70 years ago or something. And also, like
yeah,
another thing that people don't realize is that the field of AI is much older than, the average person thinks. Like just because people didn't hear about AI before ChatGPT doesn't mean nobody was working on it. Like the history goes
yeah.
back to like Alan Turing and even before Turing. So yeah, it's crazy. But like that's the argument why some people think that AGI is still decades away because 70 years ago people are thinking it's right around the corner. But I think obviously right now we have the best claim that it's actually closer.
Well, that's actually there. I looked at the timeline of all the smart people that were wrong about AGI, and it's like you have all these scientists and researchers, and they claim that we're gonna have AGI in 2 years or something. And the problem is that there's still a lot of scientific breakthroughs that need to happen in order for this to really happen, and it's impossible to predict when a certain breakthrough is going to happen. So that's why it's so hard.
Yeah, and one more thing I would add is that when you had like what agents are like, why agents are better than normal LLMs, I think tool usage is one of the things that people don't realize is that sure in ChatGPT it has some tools like Code Interpreter or GPTV, but with agents you can have like dedicated agent that has access to only one tool, and then the manager can call him, or like you can do like much more tools. I've seen your video. You had like 20 different tools in AutoGen that you've built. So like with agents, you can give them access to every single API that OpenAI will probably not implement into ChatGPT, right? So that's like another thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can always kind of build your own agent, depending on what you need, right? You can add custom tools. That's great. I believe that eventually, like everything that we have right now, that is an app is going to become a sort of a tool for an agent. If you think about it, like I think that this is what happened with those ChatGPT plugins. They were essentially,
Yeah.
if you think about it, apps, right? Unfortunately, it didn't take off. I think that it's still a little bit too soon, but yeah, I strongly believe that this is, that's the direction.
Yeah, I mean, there cannot be any like friction because if somebody has to go manually and search for a GPT, that's too much, I think. It has to be like somebody's chatting inside of ChatGPT, and then the LLM automatically sees like, oh, there is this top-rated GPT that does exactly this, and it pulls it in, and the user doesn't have to do anything, because the average user will not go to the GPT store and search up for something specific. They might even know that it exists, right?
For example, if I am looking for some sort of a Python library to do something, I honestly feel this way. Like I would rather let ChatGPT recommend something to me than like Google what type of a Python libraries exist out there, and then I have to scroll through lists of a lot of libraries, and they all kind of look the similar. I want ChatGPT to recommend, even if it's a wrong library, if it's not the best, I'd rather have that than a perfect library, but I have to like spend 2 hours searching
Yeah.
for it on Google. But of course, as you work and you need good tools, eventually maybe you have to Google and find the right library, but at least initially this is like my lazy brain thinks this way.
But like this will get really crazy once we have LLMs with like endless context windows that they can just get like 5 million tokens, and also it's like something where it's observing your screen at all times, so it knows all the context as you do. Let's say you do like some complicated coding project, then you don't have to describe everything into the LLM. It just knows like you have one agent watching your screen, one agent that is an expert in libraries or whatever, and then like all you have to do is like literally just ask it for the library, well, like either a library or just to solve the problem right away, and then it just does that because it's been watching your screen. It knows the entire code base, it knows everything about Python, all the latest updates. So like I think that's like coming very soon.
Yeah, that's the thing. The guy that I mentioned, Stuart Russell, in his book Human Compatible, he says that agent is a stream. It's literally a process that constantly takes input and output something based on whatever it is that you give it, right? So it's a process, and I can't wait to see how agents become personalized, because, for example, right now, a giant obstacle that I have is that sometimes when I use Crow AI, I kind of have to start from the beginning, or I have to like tweak things a little bit, and I feel like it's a waste of time. Ideally, I would have like a personal Crow AI, and I saw that um, there is some sort of like a short-term or long-term memory added. I still didn't have time to check it out, but I really feel excited about it. Like I can't wait to see how personalized agents can get.
Yeah, and this will also be huge for like medicine, right? Because even like your doctor doesn't know everything, like all your childhood injuries or whatever. You can just have that in like a text document or whatever, and have an agent that knows everything, and either it just solves the issue right away, or it sends that brief to a human doctor that is like, okay, if your elbow hurts, there is everything that might be relevant, and like leaves out stuff that's not relevant. So like that would be huge.
Yeah, because exactly. Or if you think about, for example, decisions that you make, you
Yeah.
want an agent to make the best decision for you, right? Am I always great at making great decisions for myself? No. Like I think I had a lot of chocolate recently. Ideally, I would kind of like stop it, but I need someone else to tell me that it's bad for me, right? And an agent would be able to like kind of create this memory and kind of this offload of decision making. It's such a giant help, and the fact that they can do it autonomously, like that's just amazing.
A lot of people would instantly like put the argument that you lose the freedom if you like
Yeah.
obviously you can still choose what the agent will do and like what it optimizes for, but to a lot of people this is like kind of troubling, outsourcing part of your thinking or like your decision making to an agent, right?
Yeah, it is deeply problematic, and it seems like nobody has a solution right now. A lot of people work on this, like alignment. Um, what was the name of that king, right? The story, the ancient Greek story, where a king wants everything that he touches to turn to gold, and then it ends up happening, and then he slowly starves to death because even when he tries to eat, like an apple is turned to gold, and whoever he touches dies, and things like that, because they also turn to gold. So that's another problem when you get what you want, right? Which it's kind of hard to we also are not that great at understanding our own intentions and our own desires. And then once you outsource it to someone else, it can lead to like, and that someone else is like a machine that doesn't know a lot about humans. That's kind of problematic. Yeah.
I think this is like, comes down to your understanding, because people that fear this usually have no understanding of LLMs or agents and how they work. Like that's what I've seen
Yeah.
with like Claude. It's the people who had like no knowledge of the technical side that were like, oh my god, it's sentient, it can think, and it's like, I'm like, chill out. And then like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like personally, I would definitely give out, like I would definitely pay for an agent that could like sort my task, know all of my goals. But the thing is, like people don't realize how much context is necessary, right? Because for us, it's natural because we live our entire life and it's all stored in our head. But we don't realize how many points of context that is, how many like visual images, text, audio we heard. All of that is in our head, and we don't like consciously see that when we make a decision, but it always like plays a role, right? With an agent, you have to give it that information. So like that's when like context windows are huge, because you can have an agent that literally knows everything about you, about your short-term goals, long-term goals, the current troubles you're facing, whatever, and then you tell it, okay, create a priority list today, and it already knows your goals, it already knows what you have to do next week, it knows your calendar, everything, and then you have the priority list and you just work. And I think like that would be huge. That would just unlock so much productivity, because like you know all of us have been there where we make like a daily task of things and then we go off it and we just like never return, right? But if we have an agent that constantly updates it, and like especially with some like VR technology where you like see the task that you have to do always, I think that would be like a massive productivity boost.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I agree. My only concern is that this you mentioned, right, Windows context, right? Window context, right? It's a problem right now, but it's slowly being resolved. But then you know how our memories are not perfect and not
Yeah,
everything is equally important to us. So what are things that an agent is going to pay attention to? It might misjudge what actually matters to us, because our memory is so flawed that we remember usually just highs and lows. We don't
yeah,
remember like the ordinary grind, so to say. And that is something that kind of is also a concern. But yeah, I agree. I would love to have my own personal agent that can remind me of things that I maybe forgot, or can decide, maybe like this, can decide for me, and then I can say yes or no. I can, in
yeah,
the
yeah,
end,
of
I'm
course.
the one who's in control, right? That's such a great idea.
Yeah, I think people like jump to the conclusion that like, oh my god, I don't want the agent to be sending emails or like paying bills. And like, okay, that's maybe like the future. For the present, like the next step is just an agent being capable of that. The step after that is like you still approve like the most significant actions, right? It's not going to be like you have an agent that just deletes programs from your PC, or like removes a Google account. Like that's not going to happen. There will be like
Yeah.
checks for the actions that are high risk that you have to human approve, right? So like I'm not worried about that. But like I don't know, I think for what you had like the worry, like what the agent might optimize for, I think that could be solved if like every day the agent like prompts you 5 different questions of like, you know let's say you have it creates a task list or whatever, and you feel like, why is this so high, right? You click it, like it should be lower, and the agent asks, why do you think, let's say, I don't know, working on your business is higher than, I don't know, going to the gym, random stuff, right? And then you explain like, well, okay, I'm already in a great shape, but my business is struggling. So like you just give it the extra context, and I think if you do that like enough days in a row, where you just ask, it asks you 5 questions relevant to your priorities and what you want, and you answer that, and you do that for a few months, I think it will be like just like perfectly aligned.
That's the thing. It's going to learn your preferences,
Mm-hmm.
because, and then as you go through life, your preferences change, and it's going to be able to adapt to that as well, right? Like what
Yeah.
mattered to you 20 years ago is not the same as now, right? So yeah, I agree. Like if it knows our preferences, it's going to be so useful to us. Um, yeah, and you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned that people are afraid of agents. You said, that the people are afraid that they're going to delete the wrong thing or things like that. And I think that fear is a giant part of AI agents. I don't know if you noticed that, when a company like OpenAI publishes a new model or something, it's a giant news, but it's not that polarizing. People are mostly excited about it, they use it, they test it, and that's it. But AI agents are so polarizing. People are either afraid of them, they believe that they're going to be replaced by them, or they believe that they're going to become rich thanks to AI agents. Like it's like
Yeah.
incredible how different these two groups are. But yeah, fear is a giant problem, and I think it comes from like misunderstanding more than anything. But also, a lot of problems are unresolved. How do you teach an agent like what your preferences are? I believe that like AI researchers have a lot to figure out.
Yeah, and for something like that, where it makes decisions and suggests what you should do, I think that absolutely needs to be open source, because we cannot
Yeah.
there cannot be any bias from a closed source company. Like you don't know what it's pushing you towards, right? If it's like obviously if it's extreme, like Gemini creating like refusing create white people, then yeah, people will notice that. But if it's subtle and like over years it's pushing you to like I don't know, maybe it's like vegan and like don't eat meat, or like I don't know, just pushing you to a certain political party slowly and slowly, you don't notice that, but like it's not in your best interest, it's in the interest who made the AI. So for that, I think like an agent that makes your decision or like makes your priority list and does stuff that's like so intimate and personal, I think that has to be open source.
Exactly. That's the reason why I kind of started my AI channel, even though I'm not a machine learning expert. I believe that AI is too important to be left to just like researchers,
Yeah.
and people that are sitting in on high positions. We all need to be involved and we all need to give feedback. Um, and I wanted to ask you, you mentioned open source now. Do you believe in all these, like, I don't know if they're conspiracy theories or not, that like Sam Altman is trying to regulate open source so that he's lobbying for OpenAI, and he's trying to like kind of reduce the importance of open source. I feel like that theory is being thrown around a lot lately.
I mean, I think it started when he went to Congress, right? I don't know if you've seen that,
Yeah.
but like he was pushing for regulation. And it's not the best look when you start a company named OpenAI and it's a
Yeah.
non-profit, and then somehow it becomes a for-profit and it's closed source, and then you go to Congress and you start like telling them how dangerous it is if everybody has access to the technology. It's like, okay, but why you, Sam, right? Like, why should
Mhm.
you and like a handful of other people be controlling the single most important technology of all time? And like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's so sketchy, and I wouldn't say they're conspiracy theories. I feel like it's the reason those theories exist is because of the actions that OpenAI and Sam Altman take. Like, if you read the emails, right, then they tried to switch the meaning of open. Like, it started as open source, obviously, and then they're like, well, open doesn't actually stand for open source. It means that AGI benefits everybody equally. It's like, what are you saying? Like, open is definitely referring to open source, not that AGI will benefit all people equally. It's like, I don't know. It's so weird.
Yeah, I agree. It's like open means that it's an open technology to everyone. Like everyone can use it. Like, oh, okay. And what, like, is there a technology that like we can say? What does it mean that Facebook is also open source? Then I mean, it just makes no sense, right? It, and I feel like we're being like they're kind of gaslighting us sometimes. But also, I don't really follow a lot of those news because I feel like there's a lot of drama going on always with OpenAI, and I fell in love with their products like 2 years ago, and then I kind of am not that much in love anymore. So that's I feel like a lot of people feel this way.
Like, when you realize the companies, right? All of them,
Yeah.
like, basically except for Meta and Mistral, all of them are closed source, like the vast majority of them. And then you look at like even content creators or people, like if you see any audience polls, the vast majority of people are for open source. But there is a massive disconnect of like big tech and the companies actually developing these, state-of-the-art models. The vast majority of them is closed source. So it's kind of crazy that the people and the content creators want open source, and then the people, like the researchers and the people who are releasing the very best models, all are for closed source. It's like an insane disconnect.
Yeah, well, I was introduced to machine learning. I think it was 2017 when my brother was doing some machine learning projects. He was training his own neural network, and I remember the landscape in 2017. Like people were machine learning was something that like researchers were doing. Like it wasn't like that many companies yet. Like it was obvious that that's the future, but it was mostly some labs, university state labs. And now suddenly it's everywhere. But also, like, I have a question for you. Do people around you use like chatbots in real life, like all the time, like your family or something? I have a feeling that it's a small bubble that
Yeah,
that
it's
cares
crazy.
about these things.
I mean, I've
Yeah,
tried to show everybody, obviously, and I even like help them set up the account because sometimes that's even too much friction. But I don't
yeah,
know. I mean, it's definitely more and more. Like the growth is there, but I mean, you bring up a great point. It's crazy because for us, when we're like in the AI field, we feel like everybody knows about this, everybody's using this, but that's not the case at all. Like so many people think they're advanced when they have ChatGPT account. Like they think like they're on the cutting edge just because they have a ChatGPT account.
mhm,
And like I'm so mind blown how many people are. It's crazy because there's one group that are completely oblivious and fine. Like you can say like they didn't watch the right video or like they didn't get the chance to see it or whatever. But there's also a big second group that know about AI, know about ChatGPT. They know that it's going to change the world, but they don't do anything about it. It's I don't know. It's fascinating.
yeah. Or they just ignore it because they I don't know why they ignore it. Like for example, my brother that I mentioned, who made, he was working in machine learning field for a while. He's not interested about any of this. I guess he's kind of curious about like these text to song tools or whatever. Like, he's interested in the creativity, but he doesn't really care that much about like chatbots or I don't know why. It's not a part of his life, and I know most people that I know don't care about it.
So like this makes me think like what needs to happen or like how
Yeah.
capable the AI needs to be for people to start caring, right?
Yeah, I kind of suspect that eventually it's just going to become a part of everyone's life silently. It's just that if a technology works well, then nobody cares about it, right? It like you don't think about how your car works. You're not
Yeah.
excited about it because it just works. So, yeah, I feel like that's eventually what's going to happen to AI. And I was wondering, what do you think about like what, for example, AI agents? How did they make your life better? Do you use them every day?
I mean, obviously I use them way less than ChatGPT, Perplexity, and like just normal AI tools.
Yeah.
But like, actually, I mostly use them for like building and like learning about new frameworks. So for me, it's kind of weird because I'm a content creator. So I mostly use them when I make content about them. I mean, to be honest, I should be like focusing more on automation, but I feel like there's still like missing stuff. Like I don't know, I feel like we need like a really solid UI. You mentioned that like we have AutoGen Studio that has a UI. Then Crew AI is working on it, but it still doesn't have it. I feel like once it's like as effortless as ChatGPT, where you just type like build a team of agent that does this, and maybe with the combination of like the next generation of LLMs, because like still like right now to build a solid team of agents, you still have to like sit down and spend a couple of hours, right? It's not just like 20 minutes and you have it working. I mean, sure, you can maybe for like simple tasks, but to really fine tune it and like, prompt engineer every agent correctly and, give it all the API keys it needs, it's still like a multi hour endeavor for every, like basically for
Yeah.
almost everything. So I feel like, I don't know, I mean, maybe I can like ask, what would you recommend me to build? Like, what do you think would teach me the most as a team of agents?
Well, I think you're right in the sense that it's a turn off when you think about how you have to set it up and you have to write all the
Yeah.
prompts. I think the prompting is the problem because it's like so much work, and I actually was trying in my video where I talked about AutoGen. I was trying to say that maybe you can build agents that build prompts for other agents, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can outsource some of the work. But even I like don't really use agents as often as I'd like to. But I So you're, as a content creator, I think that you're at the disadvantage because simply because large language models are not that good yet when it comes to, like just
Yeah,
sounding natural. Like this
yeah,
just sound is so obvious. When I look at text, it's so obvious that it's written by some sort of a ChatGPT style chatbot. So, in that sense, if this is the type of work that you're doing, it's very unfortunate. But if you are a programmer, I have a feeling that like software developers can really benefit if they have a team of agents. Like one agent is, writing this type of code, the other agent is checking that code. Like in that sense, I believe that software developers can benefit from this iterative thinking, so to say. But in the end, like, what's the biggest problem with not just agents, but just large language models? People don't trust them, and
yeah,
they don't trust them for a reason, right? Like they really do hallucinate. It's just, actually everything they write is hallucinations. Just that sometimes it's a right hallucination, right? So it's like you have to fact check everything. When I was writing this presentation, I asked Claude to write more about these knowledge-based systems in the 70s, and it invented so many weird things. I was like, where is this coming from? And in the end, as you said, first you have to set up everything. You need hours for that. Then you need to fact check everything. You need a lot of time for it. So I think that the point is that programmers can use these agents to like maybe start writing code. I think that if you need something more advanced, you cannot really rely on agents. If you're creating content, I would recommend brainstorming. They can get a lot of information and maybe summarize it for you, and then you can start whatever it is that you're working on, whether it's a script or an article. And um, and if, like sort of like personal therapy, I recommend some sort of like a local open source model that you can run with Olama or something. And maybe you have a problem that you need to resolve and you want to see it from different angles. Yeah, you can chat to like a model and get some ideas and insights that you wouldn't otherwise. That's how I see it, at least.
yeah. I mean, one team of agents I did build was like a research team for AI news, and I wanted like when I built it, it was I think February or March, I don't know. So I set it for that month, right? And still, it's like some of the news articles for like June last year, and then like that was like one big issue, and then the second big issue was that like rating, right? So I wanted it to rate from like 1 to 10 on how interesting it is, or like how important those AI news is. But what I found is that it's always like somewhere near the middle. It's kind of scared to give you like a 1 or a 10. It's probably closer to like a 10. It's like it might give you a 9, but I think it will never give you like a 2 or 1 because it feels like it's kind of offending the people who made the news, right? So it's like it's so scared, and then just overall it kind of just were like everything was like a 6 basically. It was like Mark Zuckerberg talks to some Korean leaders. It's like completely irrelevant, uninteresting, and it's like 6. It's like what? Like why is that a 6?
Oh yeah, this is hilarious. Yeah, you're right. One time I asked Claude to rate a text, like a paragraph that I wrote, and he said, "I refuse to rate this highly suspicious text. It's highly speculative, questionable, suspicious text." And I was like, "I wrote it. Apologies, but I still feel uncomfortable." It's like you don't feel anything. Just give
Yeah,
me my rating. Yeah, that because right, like I guess well, they have to align them, and unfortunately, I think that the first Chat GPT-4 that came out was really awesome, and then it became dumber and dumber and dumber as they were trying to regulate it, and now it's kind of useless. And yeah, you're right about ratings. That's hilarious. Like it's you're right. I think that it's afraid to give you like a really low or really
mm,
high grade. Like, I don't. You know how many times I tried? Like, I was testing. I was trying to trick ChatGPT. I would ask it to do this once, and then a few hours later, I would ask it again in another tab, and it would always give me different ratings. So I was like, I guess it's just making things up as it goes.
yeah.
So
I mean,
That's
I think a part of that is obviously the bias, like you said, like Claude refusing that's like shocking text or whatever, and then part of it is just the hallucination problem of LLMs, how they work, right? It's predicting the next token,
yeah.
so even if you change one letter, um, it will not give you the same answer. And I mean, especially if the temperature is not set to 0. If the temperature is 0, then yeah, it will give you the same answer if you have the exact same prompt. But for ChatGPT, it's set to 0.7, so every time you get a different probabilistic distribution of the token. So like with like rating and stuff like that, I think I don't know, probably something open source that's like fine tuned on rating, where you just give it like thousands of examples of like, this is boring, this is interesting, and you just be like super exact. I think that would perform much better than, GPT-4 or Claude 3.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm actually working on fine-tuning my own model for YouTube titles because
Yeah,
every chatbot is just so bad. Like I wanted to give me not just the title, but to explain to me why it's good. And there are a few patterns, right? You know this as a content creator. Like you want a title that's kind of like curious, it makes people curious and interested, but not like in a negative way or things like that. And it's just they're so bad at it, and I'm trying to fine tune the model. And you know, I understand why open source models are so uncensored open source models are so popular. It sounds super shady. It sounds like some sort of like a
yeah,
sex chatbot type of thing. But it's just people want a conversation that just doesn't start with as an AI chatbot. I
yeah.
don't have feelings about that. It's just you just want like a normal conversation, right? So I'm working on like creating a data set, which is taking forever. I
I mean, I
have
can
like a
send you.
local.
I did exactly that. I did that in like October. I built basically a database of videos, so like vector database where I have the video description and then the title, and I did that for like 200 or 300 videos, and then I used GPT-4 where I just give it an idea and it uses the vector database to search out like 10 or 15 most similar videos, and then uses the same
Mhm.
writing format of those titles to rewrite it for this video idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's for example one interesting way. A lot of people like fine tune them, or they have like a database with titles, right? But that's one thing that this thing that you did is really interesting. And oh, I kind of lost the thoughts. I meant to say something. Yeah. Anyway, I have a feeling that that's something that like Crew AI or agents can do in a way with few shot prompting. Maybe you can like have one agent that has like a access to like a lot of good examples, and I'm just now I haven't tried it, but that might be a good interesting idea.
But think about it, right? Like me and you, we've probably seen tens of thousands of YouTube titles, just like by watching YouTube and like over the years just scrolling
Yeah.
and seeing the videos. So all of that is kind of stored in our memory, even though we don't consciously remember every single one. We kind of know like the vibes and we know the titles that caught our attention. The LLMs don't have that, right? If you just say like write a YouTube title for something, it will be like beyond cringe. It will be so bad, like it's insane if you don't give it any examples or anything. So yeah, I think the context window is just like having tens of thousands of examples. I think that's probably the way. Either fine tuning or just some database that it can call. Probably something like that. But like I agree with you
Yeah.
that for the open source, I mean the unrestricted models, people are like always so sketched out by that. It's like, oh my god, like what do you want to do? Do you want to like, steal something or do something illegal? It's like, no, I just want to have a useful chatbot with no bias that does exactly what I ask it, right? It's like,
Yeah, sometimes they're hilarious. They because they're like usually the database the data set kind of contains a lot of like real conversations from the internet. They can sound super unhinged or kind of evil and crazy, but like that's I guess what a normal conversation would sound like. And I really prefer those to like ChatGPT. Like ChatGPT, I cannot even use anymore. Like that's how bad it has got. Like I ask it, if for example, I was using it for scripts, right? And I would try to find like I would prompt ChatGPT to write an analogy, like yeah. Anyway, so it has learned that I like analogies, and now when I ask it like, hey, like give me a Python library for something, it's like, oh, Python library, it's like tool in a tool set for like blah blah blah,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, no, just answer the question, please. It's completely unusable.
Yeah, sometimes I even have to like clarify like the user is a competent individual with good amount of knowledge about AI. It's like if you don't say that, it's like, well, artificial intelligence is this clever computer. Like, just come on, man. It's like be
Yes,
useful.
yeah. If you had one prompt a while, that's what we were talking about agents with memory, right? Because
Yeah,
ChatGPT has memory now. It learned from your chats, but unfortunately, it's like overdoing it a little bit. It doesn't really know enough to actually be useful. It's just learned one thing about me, and now it constantly tries to like feed me the same stuff. So
wait.
yeah,
So you have the
that's
memory feature?
I haven't. I had it. I don't have it anymore because I canceled my subscription. But yeah, I had it for like maybe for a while. Yeah.
I never even got it, so
Oh
I don't know.
really?
Yeah,
Maybe it's because Europe. I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. Like, I feel like Europe is like being treated as like this, I don't know, second grade world. It's like even Anthropic just didn't release Claude at all in Europe, and then the features are coming like custom instructions when it first came out, like 6, 8 months ago or whatever. It was released for like a month or two in US, and the only way I could get it is through VPN. So like, I don't
Hmm.
know. It's like so, maybe it's because like Europe is so restricted when it comes to regulations like that. So the companies, just are more safe, but it's annoying.
Yeah, of course. I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a good thing that European Union is trying to regulate some stuff. I always thought it like USA is more like, they go for stuff. People are ambitious, and when they have some tragic incidents, then they're like, oh, we need to regulate stuff. But like
Yeah,
for first they go for it, right? Like that's when if you look at the videos from the like the beginning of the 20th century, it's just a bunch of cars driving everywhere. Like
yeah.
it was just like, well, I guess we'll figure it out. And only later they regulated it and stuff. But Europe is kind of like different, and maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. I'm kind of like I cannot decide for myself, but it's sad that you cannot have access to Claude because it's really good. Like that's for now my favorite.
I mean, I'm using it through the console, but yeah, it's there is extra friction. But I think you can in Perplexity you can set it Claude Free Opus or Sonnet. You can choose them in the settings as a default LLM. So
Hmm.
even without console, I think people can use it just through Perplexity and changing the mode from web search to writing.
Ah, yes, you're right. Yeah, the Perplexity Labs. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that.
So
Good.
you seem very passionate about using open source models to run your agents locally. What makes you so excited about this?
Well, privacy. I just don't want anyone to train on my conversations. Like, as who wants that? I don't trust companies at all. I'm pretty sure that they're just using our data. That we're just building data sets for them for free,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of work, and they're just get it for free. And on top of that, we have to pay them to use their chatbots, right? So, privacy. But having said that, open source models are kind of bad. Like they're not that they're not great agents, so to say. They're really great for like simple conversations. But whenever you try to plug it into some sort of agent framework, you realize that there are only few open source models that are fine tuned to like the function calling. Those are the ones that work. Um, and but I dream of like one day when they're smarter. Like even when they do know how to make function calling, they're still going to mess things up in some later step. Like it's never going to go smoothly.
Yeah.
That's fortunately how it works. And I hate that because I want as I said, I don't want to like give these companies training data for free. And not to mention that like as we said, a lot of these like API calls that you're making to like GPT-4 or something,
again, you get that model that's like it's kind of like lobotomized or something. It's never really that great. So I prefer the way that open source models kind of sound, and I want to use them, but unfortunately they're not there yet.
Yeah, I think this is actually one of my predictions that open source, like this year, open source models, even though they will be less intelligent on paper, they will become more useful just because, as you said, they're not like lobotomized, like super, restricted, super limited. I think this is a pretty safe prediction that I'm confident in, that we will use dumber models that are just not restricted. And like I love that you brought up the privacy argument. Nobody realized this is like, nobody cares. People putting stuff into ChatGPT that's like super personal and super private and figure like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's never gonna happen. It's never gonna come up with like, eventually there will be some sort of a leak, or they will just like, government will overtake it, or like just force them to get some data. There will be something, some situation where private data from these companies gets out there, and like, if it gets like some breach and it ends up on the dark web, like, do you want all of your deepest, darkest secrets to be on the dark web for a couple of dollars? Like, people just don't think about what they're putting into these chatbots, and they just don't care at all. And like the dumbest argument I hear is like, why would I care about privacy? I'm not a criminal. And like, people don't realize that you don't have to be a criminal to even get in trouble, right? Like, just
Yeah.
look at what happened to Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, right? They just like
Yeah.
did stuff that everybody thinks they're heroes, but the government went after them because they went against the government. So like, even if you don't do anything illegal or criminal, it's one day it can be used against you. Like, people don't realize that.
You're right, because like regimes can become repressive, and they can go
Yeah.
after people that criticize them for whatever reason. It can be something ridiculous. It doesn't have to be something like that's big. You don't have to be Snowden in order to be like persecuted, right? And it reminds me of that leak that 23andMe had recently. It's that DNA testing company, and a bunch of like private data about Jewish customers got leaked. So can you imagine, like now you can like target specific ethnic group, all about them and stuff. It's just so creepy when you think about it. And I feel like people are so excited about technology, like that AI assistant rabbit, right?
Hmm.
It has a camera, it has a microphone, it can hear you. So yes, they say that they respect privacy and stuff, but one day we're all going to have some sort of like AI assistants with camera and microphone, and we'll be sending a lot of data. And even if you don't end up sort of like doing anything that might put you in trouble, like you're still giving your data very freely to these companies that are gonna do something with the data to kind of maximize their profits. That's the thing. I'm so angry. Like we give so much of our data, like to Facebook, to Instagram, to TikTok. Like, it's not okay. Like, and then they kind of become more profitable thanks to us. Like we're working for them for free, and that pisses me off. I don't
Yeah.
want that.
People always go to like some extreme scenario when all you have to realize is that the agent, or like whatever it is, AI, will act for the company's interest, not for your own interest. So it doesn't mean that you have to end up in jail, or that I don't know, it will just like
Yeah.
destroy your bank account. It's like just a small misalignment is that the agent doesn't work for you, it works for Facebook, Google, whatever. Over time, that will have like massive influence. Like, if you use that agent for years to come, like instead of improving your life, it improves the Facebook's, bank balance.
They make more profit because now they know more about their customers, right? And and we have been doing this very freely for like forever. And there's an interesting like kind of like shift where in the beginning people had this idea that like actually companies are adapting to us, they're trying to like create content for us to keep us on platforms, but actually no, what's happening is that we have algorithms that kind of shape our opinion, which is what you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, where our opinions, our beliefs are changed so
Yeah.
that we stay longer on the platform. So that's going to like get boosted even more with AI. So
I mean, trust is absolutely essential. And as you said, like when a company like Rabbit or whatever, they say like, oh yeah, everything is stored locally on the machine and it's not being sent. Like, okay, amazing, but like there is no way to like trust that, right? Because like the only way
Yeah.
to really trust anything is to see the source code. That's why open source is so essential. Like imagine if Bitcoin was not open source and it was like closer, yeah, trust us, it's all good, guys. It's there. Like nobody would buy it. And like it's the same with any proprietary software that you want to be like Linux won over Windows because it's open source, because every company can see their server exactly what's happening. There is, you can see like if there's some backdoor or whatever. If it's proprietary and it's closed source and you have to go by the word of the CEO, like, yeah, trust us, it's safe, we don't send it to our server, like, no, there is no way, like.
Yeah. Yeah, but exactly. I mean, we're gonna see that more, and I feel like we have already kind of got adjusted to it a little bit with social media platforms, and we already don't care that much about like our privacy. People share all kinds of stuff there. I mean, I'm not perfect at all. I remember when ChatGPT came out, I wasn't thinking about any of these things, and I would be like, I just had a fight with my dad. He is like this, I am like that. What do I do? Like, I just started talking about like my private life, and I thought that ChatGPT would help me. It didn't cross my mind. It's what the
Yeah.
hell? What the hell am I doing, right? So yeah, we'll see. I think that if something is convenient enough, a lot of people are willing to trade their privacy for the convenience. And I have very low expectations of people. I have feeling that as long as it's very comfortable, people are gonna give everything when it comes to their privacy for the convenience. So
But I think,
I'm pessimistic.
yeah, I definitely agree. But on the other hand, there is like, over the last few years, I feel like more and more companies and products are specifically focused on privacy first, right? So like DuckDuckGo is a search engine that's focused on privacy. Then you have Brave, that's a browser focused on privacy. You have like uBlock Origin, you have VPNs, all of that stuff. If you go back like 5 or 10 years, none of that really was used, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like, yeah, it has to be as convenient as the other, like the more mainstream method. So that's definitely the truth. Because if something has more friction, then nobody will use it. But I don't know. I think like I have some hope in, developers and people just developing stuff that's privacy centric and privacy focused and open source. Like if you have an agent that has such a massive impact on your life and you cannot see the weights and you cannot see the data sets, that's another thing. A lot of these open source LLMs don't actually show the data they trained on, so they're not fully open source. Yeah, I mean, if you can do that, that's like so risky to outsource your thinking to that, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of that meme with that CTO of OpenAI, Mira, or whatever, when she was
Yeah, yeah,
asked
yeah.
about the training data, and she was like,
Yeah, that face,
I,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, like who
Um,
is believing that the CTO of a company doesn't know what training data they used? Like, what is this trick, right? But
yeah.
it's easy to prove that they used all of YouTube. If you go to the mobile app and you use the voice chat and you press it and you don't say anything and you stop it, it says thanks for watching. And the reason for that is because if you have a pause in a YouTube video and like a long pause and then nothing happens, the most likely outcome is thanks for watching, end of video.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, of course. I mean, they're gonna have so many lawsuits. They already have a bunch of them, and actually, that's something that I kind of was. I almost fell into that trap when I was starting with like messing with like AI and making like GPT-4 API calls and stuff like that. I was wondering if I can make like a small startup that kind of creates these newsletters, personalized newsletters and stuff. But then I realized I'm scraping a bunch of like giant news platforms, right? Like I'm scraping information from them. What are the odds that they would be okay with that? So it's like
Yeah.
if that's yeah, and then if you think about like open data, that's like usually not that great, not that great quality. So it's the model is only as good as the data the data set. Like, for example, if you scrape YouTube titles to fine tune it to make good YouTube titles, is it legal? Well, probably not, right? But it would be a really helpful model,
I mean,
if it was
I guess it
trained in that.
depends whether you use it for yourself or commercial purposes. Like, I think if you just had that for yourself, nobody would really care. But like, if you started, using Google's data to build your own startup, I don't think they would like that.
Yeah, I think that they wouldn't like it anyway, but if you just use it for yourself, it's just gonna go under the radar, right? Nobody
Yeah.
cares. But you're right, like you cannot turn it into a commercial product. So that's so many unresolved issues in that, AI industry. So I think that the next decade is going to be really exciting.
I mean, have you seen the Emad Mostak leaving Stability AI?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Well, I always thought that it's a little bit strange that he is. I have a feeling that CEOs tend to be usually like a little less unhinged on Twitter, maybe. I don't know how to put it, but then I remembered Elon Musk. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the main reason why he left, I mean, I watched the podcast where he explained it, but it's basically to like make sure that AI is open and decentralized, because nobody of like the, competent founders or like people who actually have influence, none of these like big tech figures are working on that. Like Elon only open source Grok after pressure from the public, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
I think Emad really is probably the main guy who really cares about AI being open source. And yeah, I don't know, like we need someone like that who actually has experience of building state-of-the-art models, because like the disconnect between the public and what's actually happening in these elite circles, it's insane. It's like literally night and day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Well, if if you think about this stability, right? I feel like a lot of people became interested in AI thanks to them.
Yeah.
There's a giant number of people that are into illustration that use stable diffusion, or like even 3D artists. When it comes to like visual stuff, people that are doing that for work, I have a feeling that they kind of became introduced to AI thanks to them, thanks to their like open source models. So then maybe that's how I started as well. So yeah, you're right, but I just honestly I'm becoming more and more pessimistic because it's been a while. We didn't have like a release of a really good open source model for a while, and uh, model blending is an interesting technique. I'm really interested in that, but I haven't seen much going on in the open source sphere.
So do you think like there's a chance of open LLMs ever catching up to the closed ones?
I want to say yes, but I am afraid that the answer is no, just because I could imagine that if enough people knew about these problems and topics, and if we all kind of like gathered around this idea that we should have better open source models, and we all kind of invested even like $10 into some fund, then we would be able to have people that are very competent train and align these models. But what are the odds? I just I
Yeah.
think that the problem is that the funding money. That's it.
And I think it comes back to what we discussed before, is like not enough people actually care about this and like are paying attention, right?
Yeah.
So like I think it's a problem of like education, lack of education, and people just like willingly being blind. Because like you need people to understand that AI is the single most important technology in the world. That's number one. And number two, you need them to understand just how dangerous it can be if it's controlled by a handful of people, right? So those two things, once people realize it, I think they're immediately on board with open source models. But to make them realize these two fundamental beliefs, it's like already a lot of work.
Yeah, and well, you create content on YouTube, for example. When I make a video about, let's say, some open source tool or a model, my revenue is significantly lower
Wow, really?
than the one that is about OpenAI. So like
That's
it's
crazy.
more beneficial. yeah, it's more beneficial for me to talk about OpenAI. Yet, it's kind of more beneficial for everyone to get introduced more to open source. So it's like this trade-off. Yeah, yeah. RPM is lower for, at least in my case, lower for like open source stuff.
That's crazy. I've never tried like comparing that, but yeah. I mean, I guess it makes sense. It's based on the advertisers, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess people would much more likely say like ChatGPT or OpenAI than target open source. Like, yeah.
Yeah, or I actually I have a lot of offers from sponsors
Hmm.
to like promote some sort of like closed source agent framework or something like that. And I don't want to do that because I just, maybe I'm naive or something, but I have a feeling that these things uh, don't work good enough yet. So you'd be paying someone to do something that you could do on your own. Maybe it's less convenient, but it's just, if anything, education is the most important thing right now, and I feel like it's somehow wrong to promote these closed source tools that are like that. I Again, maybe I'm just being naive right now. I don't know.
No, it's just being selective, like what brand you
Yeah.
work with. Like I've gotten hundreds of offers ever since I started the channel, and I only did one sponsorship. So I mean, I understand. Like you have to be selective about what companies you promote, because there's so many scandals. Like people who promoted FTX, the crypto exchange.
Yeah.
It seemed legit until it was not, and then how do you explain to your fans like that invested millions of dollars? All of these finance YouTubers did that, and then like you cannot literally
Yeah.
repay that money, because like if, as you said, if every fan invests a bit of money, that adds up real quickly. So
Yeah.
like being careful about what
Yeah.
sponsorship you take, I think that's smart. I think.
Yeah, because right, it's a little bit hypocritical if you, like you make these videos and it's about AI and you kind of openly show that they're not really like they can achieve certain amount of things, and then you kind of like promote some closed source tool. It's somehow this is so wrong to me. I don't know, like something about it just can't click. And also, you as a YouTuber, you have to lose everything because your
Yeah.
reputation is everything. Like people trust you, and that's why they watch your videos. But companies can, what do they get to lose? Like hundreds or maybe few $1,000s. That's nothing for them. It's pennies. So, yeah, I think that I don't know about you, but like the deals that I'm being offered are just so bad. Like, here, maybe you can buy a microphone from us, or tell your audience about these acoustic panels, or and then yeah, these closed source tools, like usually like AI personalized chatbot or something like that. We have millions of them. Like,
Yeah.
how am I gonna sell this?
Yeah, you have to be like, it has to be aligned that it's an actually useful product. It's not something that you can just
Yeah.
do with ChatGPT. And then obviously the offer has to be good. It cannot be like, we give you 15% affiliate commission. It's like, come on. Like, we
Yeah.
need something that's like fair and actually usable.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've noticed, I mean, we probably did because you make content on YouTube, this AAA
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
automation agencies kind of movement. I was thinking a lot about it, like how many chatbots do we need eventually? Like, right? It was mostly, well, maybe I kind of didn't get the idea. It seemed to me like it was mostly about making chatbots
Yeah, it's
and
basically
selling them.
like, do you know the SMMA model, like social media marketing
Yeah,
agency? It's
yeah,
basically that, but like instead of selling social media marketing to a company, you try to sell them a chatbot. But I mean, as you said, like in a lot of cases, the company would just be better off using ChatGPT, to be honest, because the people
yeah,
who do that aren't focusing on making the best product possible. They're focusing on selling companies that want to get into the AI hype. They don't
yeah,
know, they don't have the technical expertise to know what's good, and then most of the people who actually run these AAA agencies, they aren't expert builders like of chatbots, or like they just cannot even build something that's better than ChatGPT, even if they have like proprietary database or something like that. So yeah, I think there it's just gonna, it's only a matter of time before it gets like kind of a bad reputation, because the people who are interested in that, they just wanna get some business to get them $2,000 to build them a custom chatbot, But like if that chatbot isn't actually more useful than Claude 3 or GPT-4, then like that's not a long-term business model, right?
Yeah, sometimes I wonder about that. Like, because the reason why I brought it up is because I noticed that a lot of brand kind of sponsorships that I get, like offered, are chatbots, and I don't know how I would sell that. For example, I mean, if I had my own chatbot, how would I promote it? Like,
Yeah.
it seems to me like it's maybe oversaturated. And that's why I really like what you're doing with AI agents. I have a feeling. I mean, I'm not like, as I said, I'm not a machine learning expert. I don't have formal education in that area, but I am an engineer. I studied civil engineering and architecture, and I love just the technology. I love to know how it works and stuff. So to me, this is kind of like the most exciting, and obviously it's the most polarizing, kind of like thing happening. And I just feel like I can't wait to see what's next in
Yeah.
that sense.
I mean, I definitely appreciate that in every video you make, you try to use local and open source models, even when the results are worse than using an API. But one thing I actually realized is that even if GPT-4 was open source tomorrow, we couldn't run it. Like, the hardware is so much behind. Like, hardware is,
Yeah.
especially consumer hardware, not like, NVIDIA AI GPUs. I'm talking about like consumer, NVIDIA, either like Mac or doesn't matter, like any consumer hardware, the scaling is much slower than in the AI models that's like software, right? So that's crazy because even if like GPT-4 or Claude 3 became open source tomorrow, we couldn't run it. Like GPT-4 is like what 1.7 trillion parameters. Like there is no way you could even run it. Like even if you were able to run it, the inference would be insanely slow to be just completely unusable, right? So that's like one thing I worry about. Like if hardware is actually like if hardware keeps improving slower than the software, the AI models, will we be even like if AGI was completely open source, we wouldn't be able to run it, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, that's an interesting point. For example, the only sponsorship that I have is it's an affiliate link is actually like a link that lets you rent hardware because actually I use
Yeah.
it, so that's why I feel free to like recommend it to other people. I cannot I cannot forget when I started merging some models and I was so excited about them. They would actually pass that evaluation on the OpenLLM leaderboard, and they would get scored and stuff. And then I remember I rented like a GPU in order to run it because I couldn't run it locally, right? Any of the models that I merged. And I tried chatting with it, and they were horrible. I was like, "What have I done?" Like I had this false belief that I have done something good. And yeah, you need a lot of like, yeah, sure, you can push and stuff in some direction and try different things and get excited about them. But ultimately, if you don't have hardware to run stuff, it's nothing, right? So, and and, and in that sense, I think that AI is a little bit unfair, and you really cannot do a lot of the stuff. Like I'm just limited with my hardware. Like people in my comments say, well, you should have run like Llama 70 billion parameters. Something like, well, I wish, and of course I would have better results, but I have like a regular laptop. So yeah, we'll see. I have a feeling that this is a giant problem for now, and a lot of people cannot do anything because of those limitations. That they're just limited with hardware.
But don't you think like the cloud is kind of a trap? Because like yeah, in the short term it's cheaper and better than local hardware, but like it's the same argument as we had like with the privacy. Because if the companies control all the computing,
Yeah.
somebody can decide like, oh, you didn't do this, Maya. Suddenly, your cloud access is denied, and like what? Yeah, now it might seem like who cares, but like once we have GPT-7 or whatever, like super advanced AI models, if you don't have access to that, you literally cannot compete. It's like not having access to the internet today. Like you cannot compete with people that do, right? So once it becomes so essential, I think we have to be really careful if we're giving all the power to the big cloud computing, AWS, Google, Oracle, doesn't matter. It's like, I don't know, I feel like the cloud is a big trap. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it certainly lose control, and you're right about that. And I hope that we would get models that are 7 or 13 billion parameters that have common sense, better common sense reasoning, so that maybe if they don't have all the knowledge, they can at least kind of like conclude things rationally, so that would make them more helpful. Because for example, now every time the test like how many sisters does Sally have, like
Yeah.
yeah, like the answer is Sally has one sister, but like every open source model is going to say Sally has 6 sisters or something ridiculous like that. Like they cannot kind of calculate stuff. You have to train them to the specific riddle, and it shows that they lack this common sense reasoning. So I guess I don't need the most knowledgeable small model. I just need a model that has better common sense reasoning. And I think that I speak for everyone when I say this, because that type of a model you can run, like quantized versions of that model you can run on your laptop without a problem, and they're going to be very useful. So you don't need to rely on cloud. So that's one solution.
Yeah, and also like people probably need to put more like importance on having hardware, even though like it's tricky because everything improves so fast. So like, you know, a computer that you buy in like 2 or 3 years is already obsolete. Like once we have those models that are not just for the privacy as we discussed, but like also for like the freedom, right, to be like decentralized computing, so that like if you piss off some company, some Google or Facebook, whatever, they cannot just turn off your cloud computing and all of your agents that are running or all of your LLMs are turned off. So I think, you know, hardware like will have much more value to be decentralized.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Slowly, I'm sorry, I'm slowly running out of time.
Yeah, all good.
So, uh,
Yeah, we have
yeah,
a good like already 90 minutes of content or something, even more probably. So yeah, it's perfect.
it's great.
So yeah, thanks
Okay,
for coming
well,
on the podcast, Maya, and it was a
thank
great
you.
talking
Thank
to
you for
you.
inviting me.